Hello, guys, and welcome to this new episode of Rising Through the Ranks podcast. In this episode, we have Mr. Suren Baliga, and I am Lucknow graduate who is currently the co-founder of Quickmetrix. In it, we talked about how he kept profits at focus and kept numbers tight since day one. We also talked about how his journey was from the job world to the startup world, and also how he got his initial clients and is currently getting bigger ones. So do let us know your opinions, suggestions, feedbacks in the comment section below.
Hi, sir. Thank you for joining our podcast.
My
And
pleasure, Amit. Yeah, thanks, Amit.
So we'll start with like a brief overview of your journey. I would like to know uh, what has from doing management studies to then doing consulting to now starting up. Like, what was this journey like in brief? And then we'll go deeper into those
Yeah,
questions.
I think typical engineer MBA, if I may say so, engineer from Bombay University, MBA from IIM Lucknow. Out of campus, I joined Wipro, then a company called BA Systems, which is IT primarily, and then Satyam, which became Tech Mahindra. I think you guys are probably too young to know Satyam, which went through a little bit of a scandal at that time. Maybe it's now a case study in some colleges. And yeah, then after about 16 years of working, we decided to start on our own. So my fellow co-founders and I, actually, we know each other for many, many years. We know each other for almost 25, 30 years now. So right from fresh out of college, we were friends.
Okay.
We always had this feeling, kuch to karte hain, and then we said, to just take the plunge and do it. Ab nahi karenge to kab karenge. So that was in 2013 when we started. And yes, the journey has had its ups and downs, but I think all things considered, it's been fun. I wouldn't trade this for anything else in the world.
sir, so you started your journey with consulting, right?
That's
Uh,
correct.
so, what were the skills required in that part of your journey? Skills required, or the things you needed to do in order to accomplish the job there?
See, consulting to my mind is more about problem solving, which means that you have to first of all understand the problem, come to the core of the problem, and then give various solutions options, because not the ideal solution may or may not work. Actually, by qualification or the basic qualification, I'm a production engineer.
Hmm.
Okay, so when you think of production, manufacturing, I'm not sure which discipline you come from. My apologies, but then you think of processes very naturally, right? So consulting to my mind, and very specifically, this is the work that I did at Satyam, and which became Tech Mahindra, like I said later. So I joined them in India, and then I spent almost about 6, 7 years in the US. Then I came back for personal reasons, but I continued with Tech Mahindra, and I was seconded to Mahindra and Mahindra. It was all about process improvement. You take a process, whether it's, let's say, a cost takeout process, right? Or it could be a project management process or an IT process improvement. Because the way to look at it, typical problem statements would be that if I am doing this right now and I need to scale, I can't keep on adding resources. It doesn't quite work that way. So what are the smarter ways of addressing that problem? So how do you go back to the first principles, as it is fashionably called now,
Hmm.
and come out with solutions? Now, when you come out with solutions, like I said, then you discover the next problem. It might not be practical, because solutions have to work always in a human context. So those are things that you need to think about. One of the things that we did at I can't name the organization, forgive me for doing so, but the crux of the problem was actually the KRAs of one department and another department were conflicting.
Okay, that is quite interesting.
So I
Does
can't.
this happen often?
Sorry,
Like, does this happen a lot in large
you will
organizations?
be surprised.
Okay.
And there is a saying that says that you tell me how you'll measure me, and I'll tell you how I'll perform. And you see this all the time, right? I mean, you hear of companies saying that somebody has been caught mis-selling. And recently, for example, there was a startup where the founders are under investigation because they have misrepresented books.
Hmm.
Now, I mean, this is my basic hypothesis. I think consulting is also a lot about being a student of human behavior. And the thing is, if you put a lot of pressure on a team or an individual to achieve something, right, everyone will crack at some point in time. It's only a question of when. So let's say Advitya is responsible for sales of a particular product, तो क्या करेगा वो? If he has got a dealer network, वो ठूसेगा, right? Credit देगा, कुछ भी करेगा, incentive देगा, he'll sell it. So that's the way it happens. So which way I said that KRAs do often conflict. And that's not wrong if you think about it. It's like if you think of a car needs an accelerator and a brake. So I don't see any intrinsic paradox in having conflict. But the thing is it contributing to a larger whole, which is the thing that you need to think about. So which way I said you can come out with an elegant solution, but whether you can execute the most elegant solution is always a moot point.
Sir, and in consulting, like generally the outside view is that you solve a variety of problems and you come up with solutions, but then the execution is generally done by someone else, right? Then how did you transition into this entirely execution focused startup build karna hai type mindset? And was that a difference, or consulting also involved that
No,
kind of?
if I may, Amit, I think that's a bit of a misnomer.
Okay.
I interact with consulting firms even now. And while, of course, it's very fashionable to say that they are only the advisors, but I think a lot of them, if not most of them, get into, I will not say execution because they are not obviously empowered to do that by whatever means in terms of the representation, but they get into a lot of execution level details. Which what I said that it's nice to come out with something on paper saying that this is the solution, this is the new process, but unless you really are able to understand at the nuanced level, it will not be a practical solution. So a lot of them do that, is what I believe. That said, yes, I think as probably you correctly put it, I wanted to come to the other side of the table, where you come to the execution, because in a way the two of them interplay, right? It's very easy to sit 1,000 miles away and say that ऐसा करना चाहिए, वैसा करना चाहिए. Get down and do it, and then I mean, यहाँ पे बैठ के तो हम लोग, we can always say how should Rohit Sharma bat, but you step in front of a pitch, the ball coming at 140 kilometers an hour, 90,000 fans screaming, it's a different proposition altogether. So yeah, you're right. Absolutely, it comes down to execution, and I think it's been a fascinating transition for me.
Sir, so what does Quickmetrix do exactly?
Sure. So we are what is called as B2B SaaS, software as a service. So we give our software on a subscription basis, primarily for brands which are dominant on digital and social platforms. So some of our customers that we are very privileged to have are like UTI, Pantaloons, Starbucks, Bank of Baroda, and some of these customers we have had for a very long time now. So essentially, we think about it, all these brands are present on social platforms, digital platforms, and they get talked on those platforms also. So there are two large use cases that we handle. One is called marketing analytics. Marketing analytics meaning what is the sentiment associated with me as a brand, right? And what attributes of the brand are people talking about? Are they talking about the distribution network? Are they talking about the people, the quality of service that they get? If it's a tangible product, it could be store related or whatever. And the second aspect is what is called as customer experience, which means once you're out there, you're putting content, and you do put out content, people will always reciprocate and talk back. It can be favorable to you, it may be not so favorable to you. So in a way, the two of them are interrelated. But then every such conversation has to be taken to a logical conclusion. Like somebody says that I want to know what offers you have for Diwali, right? Somebody needs to engage with that consumer because it's a potential customer. So all that is handled on Quickmetrix. So again, to recap, two areas: marketing analytics, which is more related to what in a football parlance I call it an offense, right? You kind of go out there, you try to engage with customers, and then there's defense, which is as things come in, how do you take it to a logical conclusion? So that's what.
So recently, I think in the last 1 or 2 years, this business model of SMMA, social media marketing agency, has been become very famous. So your Quickmetrix is basically working as a on a pie. If you look, Quickmetrix is working on all of the things in social media and other marketing also. And SMM is just a small part of it. They're just looking in the social media aspect of a business's marketing.
No, so I think you need to differentiate between a product and services. So Quickmetrix is primarily a tech platform, right?
Got
Like Gmail
Mhm.
or like Office 365. We offer the platform. Somebody's got to use the platform.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
that may be done by an end brand
Mhm.
in some cases, or it might be done by an agency like what you're referring to, Aditya, or maybe a combination of both of them,
Correct.
right? Like maybe, for example, I talked of analytics and content. So somebody who's wanting to get a pulse, मैंने 10 posts डाले in the last 1 month, what got better traction,
Mhm.
right? The software will certainly give that, saying that in ranking, this is the number 1, number 2, number 3. But why? Again, something which is interpretation, which is better done by a human being.
Understood.
Likewise, comparing it with competition, comparing it with other categories, taking those learnings and kind of like a feedback loop. So how do I up my game? Because it's always a moving target. So that part, and we work closely with agencies in a lot of cases, so that they kind of build on top of Quickmetrix and they deliver that as a service, or as the brand may do it themselves. That's a prerogative of the brand.
Understood.
Sir,
That's
and,
agency per se. It's more of a tech play that we have.
sir, and like Quickmetrix is this platform today, but what did the initial business idea look like? Like when you guys came together, what made you say, "कि यार अब job nahi, I will do this," and what excited you about that idea back then?
Yeah, so first of all, you're right. And I think since you said that in the beginning, right, a lot of people work on jobs or इच्छा रहती है कि चलो कुछ start करते हैं.
हाँ.
So in a way, it always starts like that. It's only about taking the plunge. Some people do it, some people don't. For better or for worse, we did it. In a way, it were a couple of hypotheses, to be frank with you. Hypothesis number one was that data, and that to what is called as unstructured data, was increasing. I'm talking of back in early 2010, 11, when we kind of started thinking about this idea. The second was also at that time, there was a lot of, I mean, you probably have not even heard of MySpace, and of course, Facebook had just about started at that time. So there was a lot of user generated content which was coming up. And what we felt was this was a little bit of a white space which was not being addressed. That how do brands actually understand what is being said about them there? Because the base assumption again is that when brands are being talked about there, if the brand is not aware, it's like their perception is being shaped and they are not even aware of it. So can we do something about it? So we started as actually what is called as a big data engine to handle the unstructured data. And it just converged because social media data tends to be very unstructured, and it just exploded pretty much.
And sir, what were the what did the other founders do? Were they tech people? Like because you said,
Yeah. So Uday is my second co-founder and also the CEO of the company. He and I again go back to 1995 when we started from college pretty much. And he has a similar background. He was with EY, the consulting firm. Then he was also in Satyam for some time with me. And then he was with Oracle. So again, a consulting and a tech kind of a background. And even Vijay is pretty much, actually Vijay is among the three of us, the most, you can say, hardcore techie. I'm not a techie by any measure. I can't code to save my life. So he's a hardcore techie and really hands-on with stuff. So it was like there was an idea. There was somebody who had to deliver on the idea, and somebody has to sell it. So that's the demarcation between the three of us.
I was just going to ask you, why did you choose this particular team, but you answered.
No, a lot of it is, see, and I think, and Amit will probably realize it very soon when he starts on his entrepreneurial journey. There are choices, right? So do you want to be a sole entrepreneur or do you want to be with partners? And I think there are pros and cons to each. So personally, three of us, because we know each other for a long time, I think if you want to take a long-term view, it's always better to be with partners, because there are situations that come up, personal, professional. You need a sounding board. You need complementary skills. So having partner setup is always better, is my feeling. But I think there are many solo entrepreneurs who have done extremely well. So each to their own.
And so then, when you started your business, what were the initial difficulties that you guys faced? What were the initial problems? And as you've progressed and you've grown over the last 10 years, what are the new kind of problems that now face? We'll get to both. You can start with the starting of the business.
Yeah, so I think clearly, Aditya, you've been talking to many founders, so you're right that problems keep changing as time evolves. See, none of the three of us come from an entrepreneurial background in terms of a family background, if I may say so, right? Luckily, our families were very, very supportive, which was very helpful. And to be very frank, everything was a discovery process for us, right? I mean, something as basic, if I may say, uh, in all our previous organizations, we never had to generate an invoice. There will always be some team which will do it. But here we have to generate an invoice. So कैसे करना है वो भी पता नहीं, right? And all the other, at that time when we started, there was actually service tax, GST had not yet come in, the TDS filing, all those basics, and figuring out ये हम लोग कर सकते हैं, ये this is something that we have to outsource to somebody who's probably skilled at doing it. So it was a lot of discovery at that time. Right, and as you probably know, largely we are bootstrapped. We of course have some bit of angel funding because of friends and family who were kind enough to say that they want to be a part of this success, and I hope they're happy with what they've got. But yeah, I think that also makes a big difference in terms of as you evolve. If you have capital, then you can operate at a different scale. If you don't have capital, then you think of things very differently. I think you touched upon this earlier, guys, in terms of saying that it's more about whether you want to be profitable or you want to be just somebody chasing valuation. We have clearly chosen the first.
Yeah.
Whether it's right or not, I don't know. Time will tell. But so far, we are okay.
And so, in a very simple, just an example of that would be ki, what kind of decisions have you taken day to day? For example, ki I will choose profit over growth or valuation. Like, how does that translate to real problems in the business while solving?
It translates into every small decision that you take, right? Whether it is recruitment, whether it is spending on marketing, whether you invest in sales, everything gets touched upon based on how much capital you have at your disposal, right? So hypothetically, if you are a quote unquote well-funded startup, you might just set up an entire sales team without having a line of sight on whether there's product market fit, right? I'm of course exaggerating for effect, but we did not have that luxury at all. For a long time, it was us as founders who were running the sales organization, and we've slowly built the sales team, right? So everything gets impacted by that. So it's definitely a significant difference in whether you are quote unquote well-funded versus largely self-funded.
So, how did you get your first 10 customers? What were the ways? What is the way when, for example, I start a business? How should I go about getting the first 10 or 20 customers?
So I think we were very lucky. Most of our early customers were very kind with us. They trusted us because in a lot of ways, the product was also not completely ready. And truth be told, the product was always evolving. But to answer your question, we leveraged our respective networks. Each of us came with about 15, 16 years of experience. And I think we had some goodwill, if I can say, which we encashed. We kind of spread the word among our circles, whether it is friends, professionals, and things like that, saying that this is what we are doing. And primarily, we wanted more of validation whether we are on the right path, right? And when we did that, we got a mixed bag of responses, as you can expect. And some of them translated into good conversations and eventually customers. But the truth is, like I said, it's more of customers being very kind to us. It's very easy for a brand, especially, right? It's different if you're buying something for yourself, like the guitar which I see in your background. It's your personal decision. मैं ये ले लूं या वो ले लूं, right? But when you are representing an organization and you're purchasing it, there's a certain trust that you have to put, saying that, okay, this particular technology that I'm investing in, and it's going to be something which will give me payback as an organization. So I think they put their faith in us, and we are very grateful to them for that. But yeah, it's largely to the network, and pretty much we put a reputation down on the line.
Sir, and for like pitching to these brands and generally in B2B, do you have any kind of pitfalls to avoid and like things to do which like young founders might not know, right? Ki, how to pitch, what exactly should be part of the pitch? Like, is there anything you would recommend or if any tips?
See, first of all, it's extremely important to know what you're pitching, right? And I see this because I am part of some startup circles. It's important to know whether you're, for example, pitching a product or a service. And especially in SaaS, sometimes the lines tend to blur.
Yeah.
Right? You're not selling a discrete product like a guitar that, this is very tangible, this is what you're offering. Service is the other extreme, where, if you've got a IT team, somebody says CRM bana lo, theek hai, bana diya, POS bana lo, bana diya, right? There's no limit to it. SaaS falls somewhere in between. So, but being aware of where you are and what you can offer is terribly important, right? And what are you willing to, and especially in the initial phases when we were pitching, we would always get this ye chahiye, wo chahiye, ye chahiye, wo chahiye. So how do you separate out what is relevant for you in the long term vis-a-vis a wish list? So the thing that we used to ask the prospect is, if we have this, what is the delta that you will pay for it?
Got it.
Because once you put that into the equation, there is a lot of clarity that automatically emerges, because in a lot of cases, it's just a wish list. It's a nice to have, not a must have. My feeling is a lot of the must haves we already ticked once we acquired our first 10 customers. But of course, we value the feedback that we get. It's something that, so the way we go about it even now is very simple, right? If we find that this is a common theme which is coming across multiple customers, then it completely makes sense for us.
Yeah.
That's the way we go about it. So I think it's terribly like I said, important to know what you're pitching. If you're in the services business, then ideally it's like, what problem am I trying to solve? And it's better to have a focus. Likewise, I mean, there will be something which will be common. Like even now, when I pitch Quickmetrix, we have a defined what is called as ICP, ideal customer profile, or a target segment. These are the people that we're targeting, which typically means we don't target B2B. Right? Those people may or may not be very concerned about, and they might not engage on digital and social platforms.
Got it. So B2B brands you don't pitch to.
B2B brands. I mean, we do have customers who are B2B, but that is more of, like I said, a rarity than anything.
Yeah.
Sir, so you said that you now have customers like Starbucks and ICICI. So what are there some interesting stories behind getting them to trust you, or maybe how did you approach them? Because obviously you need to have some track record. Your network knows you, as you said. They'll know and they'll listen to you. What it is that you're offering. But the big brands, they need to see some I guess testimonials or some results you already offered to your clients, so that they can also trust with their business. So what is the way to approach them with any kind of product?
See, so ideally is, like I said, to start with some kind of introduction from some trusted source, a common friend or somebody who is from their circle. But I think in terms of progressing it, a few things come into play. And I've been in B2B for my almost entire life. I think the basic thing, what I can distill it down to, is people buy from people. Right? So, for example, Amit is pitching something to me, but instinctively I feel that, yeah, this is the kind of a person that I want to do business with me. Then that becomes very important as compared to what he's selling or who he's representing. That's at least one perspective. There may be some customers who will say, no, let's just buy it from a big brand. It's always better to be safe. Like there was a saying in IT, as it is called, you can't be fired for buying IBM. right? I mean, I don't know whether it's true anymore, but people who are intrinsically risk averse, they would say, let's just buy from IBM, because even if it doesn't work, nobody will blame me because I bought it from the largest and the best IT company at that time,
Yeah.
right? So it's probably changed now, which is very fascinating and a massive opportunity for the startup world, that people buy from people. So even if, like, when we started, we had little more than a rudimentary product, but it was a functional product. I'm not a big believer in this ki pehle sell karo aur fir bando. I mean, doesn't gel with me. I don't think that's very ethical to do. So, but we made sure it was a functional rudimentary product which delivered what it was promised, and then we had very clear, thoughts on how we will develop it and enhance it further. But finally, it came to one person buying from another person, if I can call it that way. So the network can help you get that foot in the door, or at least show you the door. But knocking on that door, getting an entry, it might take weeks, months, and actually getting a handshake might take. I can't quantify how much more, but yeah, it's you got to be persistent at it, is what I believe. It's in a way not rocket science. It's a very simple, disciplined process. You need to reach out to the maximum possible folks in your ICP, your ideal customer profile, and you have to be in touch. Make sure you understand it from their perspective, because if you're students of marketing, there's a concept called marketing myopia, very very old concept, introduced by a gentleman called Theodore Levitt. So marketing myopia is where people think that somebody is buying this because they want this product. The answer is no. There is always a need that they have. So one of the way Theodore Levitt put it is, nobody's buying a quarter-inch drill. They want a quarter-inch hole to be made.
Got it.
You need to sell to people's needs, not ki I have this product and this product can do this. This product can solve these problems for you.
That's right. I mean, unless you're really a good sales guy who can, as they say, what is that phrase? Ganje ko kangi bechna and all that.
And that might not even happen with these brands, right? उनको गंजे को ये भेजना उन पे और मुश्किल होगा, I think.
Absolutely. Not just that. Like I said, you see, when you're talking to somebody within a brand, that person has a responsibility. Like I said, if he's buying for himself or herself, then it's separate. Like going and buying a very fancy car, if it doesn't work, it's on him or her. But there's a responsibility when you're buying something for the organization.
And so, like, during these pitches, you mentioned it takes months of time, and then a lot of patience.
Sometimes it can be very, very quick. Also, by the way, it's luck in a lot of cases. Which is why I said we've been very lucky in a lot of ways, and our customers have been very kind with us more than anything else. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but generally the theme of startups and businesses seems to be that there is a lot of uncertainty, and we have to mentally be okay with dealing with that. And that's one thing we ask everyone, and we would like to ask you too, how do you sustain yourself during this very uncertain, continuous uncertainty, stresses of handling a business? And like also, since you have also seen that world of working at a job for a decade or so, how does it compare to that?
See, I think generally uncertainty is now a way of life, isn't it? I don't think, and I have a lot of my friends who are in quote unquote, as you said, jobs. It's not that there is no uncertainty there, right? I think it's only the color and the context of the uncertainty that changes.
Okay.
So how do you deal with it? I think it goes back to what I said a little while back. Having sounding boards who could be your friends or your fellow co-founders who can empathize with you and act like a devil's advocate at times, encourage you when the chips are down. That's very, very important. So to my mind, I think we were also very, very lucky in terms of having a great team, and we still continue to have a great team. Being a tech company, we are not very large in terms of manpower, right? I mean, if I was, let's say, a services company, to acquire every new customer, I have to add people. That's not the case with me. It's a leverage play. It's a SaaS model. So I have a small team, but I'm very fortunate to have really, really good team members. So that helps a lot. So again, when we look at whether the person fits in, we look at the same basic things. Would this person essentially make a good entrepreneur?
Okay.
Because an entrepreneur intrinsically has to think of uncertainty, because कल का क्या होगा कोई भरोसा ही नहीं है ना.
Huh.
And जो भी है आपको करना है. It's not that there is a quote unquote head office who's going to take care of it.
Yeah, especially with no investor, like a big name investor having so much equity on board, ऊपर है ही नहीं कोई.
Exactly.
Huh.
And you've been in elevation, so I'm not sure when there's uncertainty how much the investor will get involved also. I'm sure they will do whatever they are required to do to protect their interests. After all, they have some skin in the game. But finally, I think they've entrusted the entrepreneur with running the show,
Yes.
or entrepreneurs as the case may be. So there is uncertainty. I think it's a part of life, and in fact, at our offsite a couple of weeks back, one of the sessions that I did was on uncertainty, by the way.
Okay.
And the story that I used was the race to the South Pole. I'm not sure whether you heard of this,
No.
but two explorers back in 1911 led the race to the South Pole. Very contrasting people. If you've not read it, please read about it. Roald Amundsen, who was a Norwegian, and Robert Falcon Scott, who was a Britisher. And it just contrasted how the how the race was, because when you talk of 1900s, again you talk of uncertainty, right? There's no internet, there's not even proper radio, and you're out in the wilderness and you're on your own, right? Whether whatever directional challenges, equipment not working, extreme uncertainty. So how do you grapple with that? So that's the analogy that I used. And I think what it came down to, if I can call it that way, is one is actually, if I may kind of have a spoiler alert, it was Amundsen who won the race, and tragically Scott failed and also died in the expedition.
Wow.
It boiled down to planning as well as discipline and execution. Right, and there's a entire story about it, but that's what it boils down to. So there's the better you're prepared, essentially, if there's uncertainty, you can handle it better.
Understood. Yeah, I think those were the questions we had. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I was just saying कि I heard some I think prominent sports people talk about this, like you said कि I've practiced the same thing so many times in when I'm not playing a game, that there is no chance of me thinking that I might miss, or that there will be a problem later. There will be problems, I'll deal with it and we'll get on. So you very correctly said, and there are many parallels that we can draw between business and sports, and this is one, I think.
Absolutely, you're so right. So if you got, let's say, a particular stroke practiced a zillion times, literally, right, there can still be some uncertainty. The pitch changes, the weather changes, or something like that. But at least जो आपके बस में है, आपने उतना practice किया, and that confidence makes a difference.
Yeah, exactly. So, sir, as Avint was saying, we're done with questions, and we just do a small rapid fire round in the end. So, whatever comes first to mind, you can answer in one sentence, or maybe if you want to explain a bit, you can explain.
Sure.
So, we'll start with it. So, sir, first is what is the best part about your job or your business right now?
Actually, the job itself, I love it.
And like, what's the reason?
The people that I'm working with, that makes a big difference. So I don't treat it, I mean, I could do this 7 days a week,
Wow.
18 hours a day, and I'll not feel tired.
I think that is the ideal.
Yeah.
Because people are tired of working maybe 10 hours a day because they're doing something just because of the money or because of the situation. If there were any person who's been working, Elon Musk or whatever, whoever we talk about, they're successful and they're happy doing their work because they're doing what they actually want to do instead
Absolutely.
of.
I like I said, a lot of it is luck. I don't think it's by design or I've been very clever about it. But the team that I work with, the customers that I have, the well-wishers, the advisors that we have, they give me a lot of energy more than anything else.
Got it. And the second one is like one thing you'd like to change about your job.
Difficult one, but I wish I could switch off.
Okay.
I wish I
Meaning
could.
internally, mentally, you could.
Yeah, I wish I could switch off, because even when, let's say, I'm out for a morning stroll or something like that, my usual walk, or even when I'm on a holiday, somehow I still think of work. I wish I could be able to compartmentalize, but I am not very good at that. So I've learned to. And by the way, this was true even in my previous organizations, right? I mean, I was accused of being a workaholic,
Okay.
but I think I've made my peace with it.
Uh,
I tried to change, but I couldn't.
until you yourself are okay with that kind of a life, there is no problem. You will burn out only when you're doing something you're not interested in.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So, sir, next question would be: can AI or robots take over your part of the job in a few years, maybe in 20 years? Can they take over the part of a co-founder of of a SaaS business?
That's a very tough one, if I may say so. I think some parts, yes, and of course it all depends. We also internally use a lot of AI in our tech, by the way. So it's a fascinating new realm. But in terms of decision making, I think that is still something which is very subjective. It has many shades, and I'm not too sure whether any algorithm can do it. Like even for our software, right, when we use AI, there always has to be what is called as a training set of data, saying that these are the parameters, these are the circumstances, these are the use cases, and many such, and therefore this is the most optimal response to be given.
Yeah.
I think in the startup world, no matter how many you do, there'll always be something new. The uncertainty that you referred to. So I'm still not sure whether AI will be able to do that, but I could be mistaken. You never know.
And so the last question is, what is one missed opportunity that you wish you had taken, maybe over your career or in the business?
I try not to have regrets. Actually, I mean, this might sound very strange, but I think I generally am a believer in the fact that it's all for the best, right? In every respect. Maybe if I was bright like you kids, I should have also gone to a BITS Pilani, Goa, but I did not. I didn't study hard enough. But I generally try not to have regrets, because I think everything kind of settles in some way and it all works out. So far, touch wood.
That's good.
But yeah, I think all for the best is the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think that concludes it, sir. Thank you so much. First of all, your answers were so well pointed. I almost want to do another session with you sometime. I feel we didn't cover everything. We weren't. We need to go deeper.
All of the questions you gave very condensed
Yeah.
answers. Ki this,
Uh,
this, this, this. We
yeah.
need to go back and look at it to grasp everything that you've told us.
That's very kind of you guys. I hope it's been a useful utilization of your time as well. Because,
Yeah.
Definitely.
and
Yeah.
more importantly, I think your audiences find some value in it, which is the whole reason why we are doing this.
Definitely.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.